I finally said, I'm going to die. I'm just going to get into my bivvy and I'm just going to go to sleep. And that's what I did. And then next thing you know, I hear Candace's voice. She's the race director. She had seen that I hadn't moved for 9 hours.
Wow.
And, you know, I was in a little circle. I was just going around in a little circle for 9 hours on my spot tracker.
Hello.
Hi, we're back
We're back.
with another incredible podcast.
But first,
what's happening with GottaRunRacing?
well, we're a few months away from our first inaugural running of the Lost Treasure Trail Race at
Right.
Mansfield Outdoor Center.
That happens May 14?
That's right, 5 and 10K.
Yeah, I can't wait to mark the course once all the snow melts.
Absolutely.
And who's on the podcast today?
Well, we have Phan from Washington State. And if her name's not familiar to you, it should be.
You go to UltraSignup right now and just put in her name, Phan.
You'll be there a while.
Yeah, she's done some incredible things. She's done 358 races just on that alone, but I'm sure it's a lot more.
Yes.
And
143 trophies.
just in UltraSignup.
50 Ks, 50 milers, 100 milers,
Yeah,
200 milers.
yeah.
And of course, where we discovered her was recently, across the years.
She came in third overall, running 10 days with 1,000 kilometers, or close to 1,000 kilometers. So I said, let's get her on and let's talk all about it.
I want to know the secret.
Me too. The longevity
So let's get to Phan.
coming up.
So we'd like to welcome Phan, living in Washington State. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Well, how we came across your name very recently was we were following across the years, and Ultra Running Magazine. Oh, there it is. You wear that proudly, I'm sure. Ultra Running Magazine had a little blurb about you in their newsletter leading up to the race, I believe. So I thought, oh, wow, this lady's done a lot of races. Let's check her out. So when I went to UltraSignup and looked at your long list of races, normally when we're doing research for our podcast, we print out the UltraSignup list so that we can refer to it. But it was 31 pages, Phan. So we decided not to print it out this time. And we thought, well, let's handpick some of the races that we'd like to chat about. And just in general to see what you are all about, because it's fascinating. You're fascinating to me anyway.
Well, I was checking out your podcasts, the interviews that you've done. I was like looking at the people you've interviewed and all these luminaries, I guess I would call them. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, how do I fit in with these people? Golden ticket people, and just people have been doing this for a long time as well. So I kind of show up here and there. Sometimes my performances are good, and other times, I choose them to be, training runs and don't want to stick out too much. So.
Right.
So anyway, your list is impressive.
Oh, thank you. And the other reason too, from a female perspective, I'm 51 and I believe you're around 50. So
yeah, it's another month and then I'll be with you.
Okay. So I'd like to talk a little bit about that, because I think that, once you turn 40, things start to change with our bodies. And once you turn 50, same thing. So we'll get into that later, because I think that's another thing that could be really useful for our listeners who are aging and still wanting to compete in ultras. So we'll get to that soon.
Okay.
But first,
how did you even get into running generally without the ultras? Let's just talk about basic running.
Well, when I was going through my physician assistant training, I did a month in the Phoenix area, and I just wanted to stay in shape without like joining a gym or anything. So I just started running, and I tried running before, especially around other people, but found myself struggling and not liking it because I was trying to keep up with everybody else. So once I did it for myself or did my own pace, I found that I enjoyed it a lot more, and basically just joined my sister was doing a 12K when I came back. So I did it with her, and it just kind of snowballed from there. When you find something that you enjoy and you're actually pretty good at it, you just want to keep looking for the possibilities. And so, half marathons to marathons and then to ultras and beyond. So it was more to get in shape initially, but then it just kind of became a lifestyle, I guess.
Right.
And then one other thing was that here in the Pacific Northwest, we had a group of 3 guys who started a group called the Marathon Maniacs. And so when I joined that group, it was one of those things where you're surrounded by people who enjoy running and doing multiple races. And I got caught up in that.
So you were surrounded by maniacs. Perfect.
Mm-hmm. So that started the 50 plus marathons a year, and I did that 3 years in a row, and a lot of that eventually included trail ultras, and so the third person of the group, Tony Philippi, he and I decided we were going to we wanted a new goal, and so we decided either 1,000 marathons / ultras in our lifetime or 100-mile runs, which I will probably get before I get to the 1,000. But I'm still working on it. COVID kind of put a little bit of a damper on that, but I'm getting back to averaging about 28 to 30 races a year now that races are back.
Right. So what number are you at towards the 1,000 goal?
I still have a ways to go, so I'm at 569.
Okay.
Which includes 402 ultras and 167 marathons as of today. So it took me a long time to get to 500, and then I'm a little worried that it's going to take me even longer to get the next 500. Again, as I age and choose races that don't count towards more than one race, like a 10-day at ATY only counts as one race, so they count as 10 races or whatever. So I'm choosing the wrong races to beef up my numbers.
Right. Now you mentioned that you were in Arizona to study, and I understand you've worked in rheumatology, which obviously is the study of joints and bones. So let's go right to that question. Have you personally had any major injuries that you've dealt with?
My main one is plantar fasciitis. It's never prevented me from training or racing. Mm-hmm. After during ATY, I didn't really feel that there was a problem. I had more problems with peripheral neuropathy in my feet than plantar fasciitis that I felt. But when I came back, my plantar fascia was pretty stiff. And right now, like while I'm training, it takes me 1.5 miles or 2 miles to loosen up. And then it doesn't really bother me for the rest of the time. So it's slowly getting better, but that has been my main injury. But otherwise, no, I haven't had other injuries. If I notice that my Achilles is bothering me, I'll just put some heel lifts in to let it calm down a little bit. And
right.
Besides rheumatology, I did work in orthopedic surgery for 12 years. So I have that background also. And actually I was able to help quite a few people during ATY get through their repetitive injury issues during the race. Sometimes, the injury was far progressed enough that they weren't able to continue. But other times, I think I helped a few people continue to be able to at least walk or get more mileage. So It was kind of fun to share some knowledge and to help people. It's just a pretty tight-knit community there.
Right.
Well, we'd like to ask you some about specific races because it's races that we would like to do that you have already done. And I'm curious about the ones you've done in Canada. Was your first 100-miler in Canada?
It was. So during actually, I was just reading the Canadian running magazine about couples, and I'm like, how come you guys aren't in the couples?
Oh, wow! I will have to check that one out.
Yeah. So the Eagle, put on by Mo the Eagle. At the time, I was competing in the Trail Runners Trophy Series, and you get points, for placing or just even doing the race. You get more points for placing. And I had been very scared of the 100-mile distance. And but this one, because it was part of the trophy series and I was leading the series, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to go ahead and do that. And it was so hot. I mean, I think in Celsius, I think it was for you guys, it's like 39, 40 Celsius. And, it was, and you know, I slept in a tent. I was like just overheating and I cramped terribly at around the 50-mile turnaround to the point where my competitors, because I was way ahead and I didn't know about salt and I didn't know about, you know, pacing. And, you know, I'd done the shorter races and I felt good until I didn't feel good. And I basically, all the muscles in my body cramped. And all my competitors had to, or the people that caught up with me, literally lift me up off the ground with me screaming because I'm cramping so bad and put me in the ditch where there was the only shade on the course and just let me you know, relax as best as I could.
Right.
And so eventually I was able to get up and walk to the aid station where they, you know, gave me chicken noodle soup or, you know, salt and hydration and just stay there for like 2 hours until I could walk out of there again. And at the time I just didn't want to quit. And my husband at the time also helped me out. And so I was able to continue and not DNF, but it took me a long time. As night came on, I was able to catch a few other people. Not that I was competing at the time, but I was able to run again, which was remarkable considering I could, you know, barely get off the ground. And so that was so hard. Probably one of the hardest races I'd ever done, but learned about electrolytes at the time and had a lot of help from the other competitors. And then I did Lost Soul, also part of the trophy series.
But it's that old adage of wait 20 minutes in an ultra and things can go from bad to good or good to worse or
yeah,
right?
You just have to fix the problem and some, you know, some people they've done enough and they know that they can probably get past it. But other people, you know, it just depends. I think people know when things can be improved or when they shouldn't continue.
Right. Well, especially in your first, you would have no idea that, you know,
it's a learning curve.
It is.
But I was too obstinate to stop.
You have to run 100 miles to learn how to race 100 miles, I think, basically. I'm just curious about that race, the Eagle, which no longer exists, I don't think. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Another race I'm interested that we're doing is the Cascade Crest, which you've done 5 times or 6 times. I'm not too sure.
13 times.
You know what? I stopped counting.
Yeah, so I have the most finishes for the female, and it was very special when obviously the 10th time they give you a 1,000-mile jacket, and on the back I had embroidered all of my times on the back, and so the list continues to grow. I started at 14 times and I finished at 13 times. On my 8th year, I salted too much and I was having, you know, just explosive diarrhea. I was cramping terribly because I thought my cramps were from salt and not from hydration. And so I was totally dehydrated. And then I just, you know, the salt was the wrong thing to do. And so I DNF'd at mile 84. I had to wait till that aid station closed down because that's a hike-in aid station, and I had to get on the piggyback of some people who came out to extricate me because you have to hike out 3 miles out a very steep trail, and I could not put any weight on my legs without cramping. And so James Varner, who's the race director of Rain Shadow Running, was one of the people who came out, and I had to get on his back every once in a while. You know, I did walk out a few steps on my own, and then I'd be like, I gotta get off these legs. And so I basically laid there in a tent until they closed down the aid station, tried to hydrate, tried to do whatever it is that I could get my muscles back to working, but really couldn't by the time they closed the aid station and had to get piggybacked out.
Wow.
So that was a very sad for me. It was because I had a streak going with starting Cascade, and that broke my streak. So I didn't finish the 10 consecutively. But I eventually did finish 10, and then I kept coming back. And so, yeah, I'm on the wait list this year, but I'm pretty high on the wait list. So I'll probably end up getting to start my 15th and hopefully finish my 14th Cascade.
So tell us a good experience at Cascade.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, my good experiences were the ones that took me the longest, and really just enjoying the terrain more and not feeling like I'm trying to push myself. And those, I did 3 Cascades after finishing the Bigfoot 200 3 years in a row. So they occur 2 weeks apart. And so I would finish the Bigfoot and just rest and then come and do the Cascade. And knowing that I'd just done Bigfoot, I felt no pressure to do well, and to start in the back of the pack. One year I took pictures of all of the PCT through hikers and asked them their names and just, spent time talking to them like, hey, what's your trail name? And, there's an aid station coming up. I'm sure they'll load you up if you want. So, I know the course so well. And there's one section where we encounter them because I think we run on the PCT for like 30 miles. And so I really just took the time to enjoy the volunteers and the through hikers and take lots of pictures. And then by nighttime, I was passing people because, that's my strength is late in the race when it's cooler and I haven't pushed myself in the beginning. I can, usually go start running again. Loosened up. It takes me about 50 miles to loosen up.
That's fantastic. Another race I want to talk about, which we will be at this year, is Western States.
Yay! Is it both of you?
No, just Norm.
I finally got in. She'll be my crew.
Nice. Okay.
And let's talk Western States briefly.
Yeah.
About how your experience was there and what pointers do you give for me?
So yeah, I got in when they had the, 2-time loser. So I was one of the last of the 2-time losers. I haven't been able to get back since. So only because, I would not forget, but I guess it's another hot race that I worry about. So sometimes I would purposely not, put in my name in the lottery and then break that. I guess you have to do it every year or else you lose your lottery points. So I did break my entries a couple of times. And so, but as a runner, it's like, it's really, I'm sure this has been said before, the Boston of, ultra running, right? And so you just feel the energy there is so amazing. As a crew, like my ex-husband, he crewed me at the time. He didn't like it. It was just too busy, too much, too far to travel and such. But he wasn't a runner, and so I think that's really different. When you are a runner and you know the culture, it's special for both runner, crew, pacer, everybody, and it is magical. I mean, I would love to go back. I think I'd really have to train differently, heat training and hill training, strengthen my quads. I understand most people have more problems with their quads. And I guess my tip for you is that I have a problem that when I'm climbing, when I start running downhill, I have trouble. So I would recommend, for me at least, when you're climbing and you get to a downhill, walk that first, section, 1 minute, whatever it is, to let your muscles kind of readjust. Because that to me is when people tend to have more problems, is that initial downhill. They're like, oh, it's a downhill. I got to start running. And next thing you know, in about, 5 minutes, you're like, oh my gosh, I got to walk. My quads are not doing well right here. So I feel, and I don't know what happens to other people, that transition is really hard, and people don't realize it because it's like I've been walking this whole time uphill. Yes. I got to make up time. Take advantage of this downhill. And make up time. Yeah, but to me, if you walk that first part for like a minute at least, you can run down that whole section next 3 or 4 miles better.
Well, you are the most experienced runner we've been chatting to, so whatever you say, I am taking all the advice you're giving me.
I just think your heart needs to settle down and your muscles need to settle down, and it will pay off benefits. And there's so much of that Western. There's a lot of big, long uphills followed by very long downhills. And so that's my recommendation. And when I first started running, I had a lot of people come up to me and say, hey, what's your advice for me going into ultras? I'm like, if you feel really good, you're going too fast, right? And so, and that has resonated with a lot of people because, you're like, oh my gosh, I can do this forever. And you can't. And so I always tell people, when you are feeling really good, you can still make good mileage. You just need to tone it down. Just take it down one notch. And I believe me, you will be able to maintain that pace longer if you just tone it down a little bit. And I know that people know that it's hard to do when you get caught up in the excitement.
I'm a lone wolf myself.
Yeah, you are.
I don't train with people that much. I run by myself mostly.
I mean, even when we run together, we don't talk very much.
I don't talk. And when I have a pacer who runs with me for 50 miles of a 100-miler, we don't say one word to each other.
Exactly.
Not one word. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interesting.
And I think there are some people who get energy from their friends, their pacers and everything. I'm just not one of those people. I've fired pacers before. I've I've had a pacer
during the race,
and I'd be like, I need to be by myself. I'm sorry. I know you come all this way to be with me, but I just can't do it. Why don't you go ahead? We'll be together, but not be together. And fortunately, I haven't lost any friends because of that. I know, and at the time, I'm sure they're like, God, she's so terrible. But I think they also say, she's tired. She hasn't had enough calories. She needs to, regroup. So I haven't lost any friends, but I have fired pacers before. And that's what happened with my 200s is I finally decided I can't have any pacers. I can't deal with it. And then I had the terrible hallucination for 9 hours. And I'm like, I need pacers.
Oh, gosh.
So.
Which race was that, Phan?
The Moab 240. It was my second Moab. The first Moab, I used to be able to deal with sleep deprivation better at a younger age than I do now. And so, but the first Moab, I had trouble, but I didn't get hurt or nothing happened. I got off trail and I was up on this, cliff where I shouldn't have been. And I was able to get back down. So that was my first Moab. And then my second Moab, took me longer. I think because the route had to be changed and there was, snow up on the LaSalle's and it took a long time. And on the fourth, third night going into the fourth day or something like that, I was hallucinating so bad that I could not, I could not get out of my hallucination.
What were you seeing? What was going on? What were you seeing?
Do you remember?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think I wrote about it in my Facebook posts, just to tell people, this is dangerous. But I basically, first I started out with auditory hallucinations, but this one was very visual where, every time I tried to get out of my hallucination, these bushes would start to crowd around me and wouldn't let me go anywhere. It's like I was trapped. I couldn't get past these bushes. They would move around me.
Oh my gosh.
And so I would realize, okay, I'm in a hallucination. So I would get into my bivvy, which I'm glad I had because it was like 16 degrees, up on top of a mesa. And fortunately, I had shut all of my lights. So people do weird things when they are in hallucinations. Of course, people get rid of their clothing. For me, I got rid of my lights. And so I had no way of, when you're not, illuminated, you are really, really going to be trapped in your little world. And so I would get into my bivvy and try to rest. And then I would wake up and I would still be in my hallucination. I would not be able to get out of it. And that lasted for 9 hours. And after doing that, what seemed like to me years, because your time is, it's like I've tried to get out of this world for years. I can't do it anymore. And so I finally said, I'm going to die. I'm just going to get into my bivvy and I'm just going to go to sleep. And that's what I did. And then next thing you know, I hear Candace's voice. She's the race director. She had seen that I hadn't moved for 9 hours.
Wow.
And, you know, I was in a little circle. I was just going around in a little circle for 9 hours on my spot tracker. So she came out. There was someone who came from the aid station in one direction, and she came from the finish. I was only like 9 miles from the finish, right? And so she came from there, and there's someone who came from the other direction. And with her, you know, with my spot tracker, she found me. And she's like, Vaughn. And I just immediately woke up like, yeah, like, yeah, like I was completely awake at that point because I had slept. So it was Candace's voice that woke me up, and I was completely wide awake. And she brought me in, or she got me back going. She ended up letting me go and finishing on my own because she had to get back to race directing. But like I was passing people in the end, you know, because I hadn't run for 9 hours. My legs felt crashed. And but yeah, that was probably the most scary experience I've ever had as a runner.
What made you move on to the 200s? Because you've done Bigfoot, you've done Tahoe Rim Trail. What made you want to go to the next level beyond hundreds, to 200s, 240s? Yeah,
I think I wanted to push myself like everybody else, you know, something new. I think I realized that I was better at endurance than speed. And so I looked for races that, you know, kind of brought out my strength. And so the longer the race, the better I tend to do. And so that's what got me into that. And then once I got into the 200s, again, the culture of, not that 100s aren't great, but the cultures of 200s and multi-days, I think is a tighter knit community. And so you really feel like you found your people in those races.
Right.
The most recent across the years, you just finished 2 months ago, 3 months?
Not even a month.
Yeah.
A month.
About a month.
Yeah. A month ago?
About a month ago, yeah.
And you came in third overall. When you are standing at the start line of the next across the years, people are going to be like, okay, this is the one we have to watch out for here.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, when there's a longer distance, I'll choose it. You tend to choose the thing that is longer. Although on day 5, I regretted that. I was like, I don't want to do this for another 5 days. I feel terrible. But again, just like in a 100-mile, it takes me 50 miles to warm up. In a 10-day, it takes me 5 days to warm up. And so your body just starts to develop a tolerance for it, and you start to do better. In some sense, I mean, like my muscles and my legs felt good, but my feet, you know, I think the feet is what really affects people's ability to continue to perform well.
How many ultras have you done in 1 year? Do you remember the most ultras you've done in 1 year?
I'd have to go back, but might be like over 30.
30 in 1 year. How many weekends are there in a year?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
But where she lives.
Oh, yeah. You're surrounded by every weekend there's something going on, eh?
Yes, exactly. That's, you know, I can find 30 races in the state of Washington alone. And more if you include marathons. So there's, you know, I don't need to go anywhere. I probably, you know, I don't mind doing races over again. I mean, there's a sense of like, nostalgia, I guess, when I do those races again. I mean, Cascade is basically a family reunion nowadays.
Right, exactly. Well,
they say that Javelina is the party in the desert. What is the best party race that you could think of? Is Javelina it, or do you think if there's maybe another one that's not getting
I would probably say ETY because you get to see everybody constantly. I mean, you get to spend time with people, you know, in a single distance race. You may never talk to a person at all, but in the 1 mile loop where you're changing directions and you're forced to walk sometimes because, you know, you just can't run. You can talk to, I met a lot of women in their 70s and got to know them only because this is a, you know, closed loop, and they were very grateful because they spend most of their time not talking to anybody. I met a woman who did Bull State 4 times, and she's always in the back, never get to talk to anybody. So she felt so privileged to have talked to me and Mikey, and she met another woman who's her name's Kaz Williams. She lives over in Chamonix, and got to know her. I mean, you really get to know people at these things when otherwise you wouldn't in other races. And to her, that was the best part of ATY. so yeah, if you're going to do ATY, yes, you can be competitive, but there's a lot of camaraderie, and that's what makes it so special.
Right.
And they've really perfected that race. Not with only the food, but yeah, everything's so good there. Like people didn't want to leave the loop. I mean, my boyfriend and the guy who came in second, they just like, I don't want to leave.
Wow. Well, I have to say, as a woman, I'm so inspired by what you've achieved. And I can't wait to watch and see what you do in the future. And every time I'm having a crappy run, I'm just going to think of you and go, there's no excuse. Just one foot in front of the other. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
Thanks so much.
This has been amazing.
Yeah.
I'm so looking forward to today.
Well, you guys have been great. I was looking at your podcast, and I wanted to see what you look like before I actually got on. And it's like, hey, it's them. It's like I already knew you, you know. Like, so that was good. I mean,
if you don't mind, we like to finish our podcast with a little bit of rapid fire.
oh,
questions.
okay. Well, I'm not very good at these. Like, oh no.
Don't worry, we won't stress you out too much. How many years have you been friends with your oldest friend?
So I would say over 15 years. Like, my friend Jess, she came into running after me, but once she was like me, once she found running, things just took off. So, Jess has probably been, because I've been running for 21 years, and she came kind of about 3 or 4 years after me, I think.
Okay.
So yeah, we're still friends,
That's awesome.
and we still get together and do.
So she never paced you in a race then?
Oh yes, she did.
Oh, she did. Hey, you didn't fire her.
I didn't fire her because we unfortunately have a lot of the same type of thoughts, which is, if I'm sure, it's like we are terrible together. So, and we can run together without talking for a long time. I didn't fire her. So,
What's your go-to food at an aid station?
oh, it varies, but I don't know. The first thought I had was Cheetos.
Cheetos. Yum.
I ate a lot of Cheetos at ATY. I think because I have a problem with salt, and I just need something salty rather than sweet.
But they turn your fingers orange.
Yes, and my mouth and everything.
Name a place you'd like to visit, but not to race in the world.
Yeah, New Zealand, the Great Walks. We'd like to do that someday.
Yeah. Okay. 80s or 90s music?
Oh, 80s.
80s. What's the
Yeah.
last concert you went to?
Well, my first concert was Janet Jackson, and I can't remember the last one I went to.
We already know your superpower, but if you could pick a different superpower, what would it be?
To turn back time just 5 minutes.
Every
Kind
day.
of like Doctor Strange, like.
That's a good one.
That is a good one. We haven't had that one.
No, 5 minutes can make all the difference in the world. It could save your life.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Phan, and enjoy the rest of
guessed.
your day. You did. It wasn't a
Well,
test.
It was fun doing this with you. I told Mikey, I was like, I'm not doing any more podcasts because I always feel like I'm just saying the same thing over and over again. It's like, how many times do people need to hear me say stuff like this? And, a lot of people know about my background, and it's like, I feel like my friends don't listen to my podcast anymore because like, oh, we've already heard that. And so, but you guys have made a lot of fun. It was less painful than I was worried about.
Oh,
I always feel like, oh my gosh, I don't like to hear myself talk too much.
Well, you were amazing. So thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And hopefully
All right,
we'll see you at a race in the US.
Or even back to Canada.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, I would love to get back up to Canada for sure.
And come out east next time.
Okay.
We're in Ontario.
I'll work on it. I will work on it.
We have a 1K loop that we can do for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I don't mind closed loops anymore. I relish them.
Good.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to have to learn how to figure out to do those 1K loops because I can't get my brain around them yet, but aspirations.
Yep.
All right. Thank you so much, you guys.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow. What do you want to say about Phan?
Wow. I'm in awe. And you know what I thought was really interesting is the fact that she mentioned that in her early days of running ultras, you could call it social anxiety. She didn't really want to engage with other runners. And look how far she's come in that regard alone. Where across the years, she's making a point of chatting with everyone and learning a little bit about the other participants. That's really interesting.
Whatever information or things that she suggested to us, I definitely gonna soak it all in because to walk down a hill, because I love running downhill.
Yes.
As soon as I get up, I'm running down, and I'm thinking, okay, that's it. I'm gonna try it in training. I'm gonna walk for a minute and then coast to the rest of the downhill.
Makes perfect sense, but you're right. Once you've been climbing for so long,
You just want to kind of make it up,
yeah, you're natural.
and that could be your mistake.
Right. So
Could kill you in the long
you're
run.
gonna write that on your arm for Western.
Walk the downhill for the first minute.
All right, and you're gonna think of Vaughn and you're gonna thank her.
Yes, I'll call her. I'll message her after and say, I did it. There you go.
All right.
Until next time, take care.
If you'd like to hear the full-length version of our chat with Vaughn, check out our podcast channel.
Cheers.